They swore under oath that they never touched him. Then the video dropped. What happened in that courtroom left the entire city in shock. The courtroom was packed. Every seat taken, every eye locked on the small figure in the witness stand. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but the world was still watching. Reporters scribbled furiously, legal teams whispered among themselves, and the air was thick with something unspoken. Then, Jalen Carter spoke. "The cops beat me. I told them I couldn't breathe. They just kept going." 12 years old, small for his age, sitting in that massive wooden chair. His feet dangled just above the floor, but his voice? It hit like a sledgehammer. No one spoke. No one moved. The judge, a man who had been on the bench for decades, exhaled through his nose. His hand twitched like he wanted to adjust his glasses, but he didn't. The jury, a mix of faces, some skeptical, some shifting uncomfortably, sat frozen. The officers? They sat at the defense table, rigid, eyes darting between their lawyer and the boy they had sworn, under oath, they had never touched. Jalen swallowed. His fingers curled against the arms of the chair, gripping tight. He wasn't crying. He wasn't even shaking. He just looked tired. They threw me down. My head hit the pavement. One of them put his knee on my neck. I kept saying, "Please stop." His voice didn't waver. He just told it like it happened, matter of fact, almost like he had rehearsed it, not because he wanted to, but because he had relived it so many times in his mind that it was burned there. His mother sat in the front row, hands clasped so tight her knuckles were white. Her lips pressed together like she was holding something back, anger, grief, maybe both. The defense attorney cleared his throat. He was a polished man, mid-50s, expensive suit, the kind of lawyer who made a career out of making ugly things sound justifiable. He leaned forward. "Jalen, are you sure you remember everything correctly? It was dark, wasn't it?" Jalen didn't even blink. "It wasn't dark. We were right under a streetlight." The lawyer shifted in his seat, glancing at his papers. His plan, whatever it was, wasn't going as smoothly as he'd hoped. The judge adjusted himself in his chair. "Let's keep this moving, counselor." The tension didn't break, not even for a second. Jalen took a breath and looked right at the jury. They laughed. When I stopped moving, one of them said, "Ain't no cameras here, kid." Another beat of silence. One of the jurors, a woman in her early 60s, inhaled sharply. A man in the back row of the gallery whispered something to the person next to him. The judge looked down at the defense. "Do you have any further questions for the witness?" The lawyer hesitated, then, "Not at this time, Your Honor." Jalen exhaled and turned his head toward his mother. She gave the smallest nod. He had done what he came here to do. But what came next? That was out of his hands now. But the truth had already cracked something open, and there was no stopping what was coming next. The courtroom felt like another world compared to that night. That night, the air was thick and sticky, the kind of heat that made everything feel slow, like the whole city was holding its breath. Jalen was just trying to get home. He had been at his friend's house 2 blocks over playing video games. His mom had called, told him to be home by 10. He wasn't about to be late. Not after last time. He took the usual route, down Oakley Street, past the gas station, through the shortcut behind the laundromat. He'd done it 100 times, never had a problem. Until he did. The headlights hit him first, bright, blinding. A police car screeched to a stop just feet away. "Hey, stop right there!" Jalen froze. 2 officers jumped out, hands on their holsters, fast, like they were ready for something big, something dangerous. "Put your hands up," one of them barked. Jalen did, fast. His heart slammed against his ribs. His arms shook as they hovered above his head. "What did I do?" His voice cracked. "Shut up!" The taller cop, the one with the shaved head, walked toward him. Slow, at first, like he was sizing Jalen up. The other one stayed near the car, hand still on his gun. Jalen looked around. The street was empty. His house was just past the corner, but it might as well have been a mile away. "What's in your pockets?" "Nothing." "Turn around." Jalen hesitated. Wrong move. Before he could even speak, the taller cop grabbed him, spun him around, shoved him hard into the pavement. Pain exploded across Jalen's cheek. Asphalt scraped his skin. His arms were twisted behind his back before he even knew what was happening. "I didn't do anything." His voice came out shaky, half strangled against the weight pressing him down. A knee drove into his back, hard. "You match the description," the cop muttered. "What description? I'm just going home." A rough hand gripped his shoulder, shoving him harder into the ground. His ribs screamed. Then came the first punch, a sharp, sudden blow to the side. Then another, and another so. Jalen's body curled inward on instinct, trying to protect himself. "Please." His voice was barely a whisper now, but they didn't stop. His mouth filled with the metallic taste of blood. His vision blurred. He tried to move, but every time he did, a boot, a fist, something slammed him back down. "Ain't no cameras here, kid." That voice, low, almost amused. Jalen felt something wet slide down his face, blood, sweat, tears, maybe all three. Then, just like that, it was over. The weight lifted, the hands pulled back. "Get up." Jalen pushed himself onto his elbows, coughing, chest burning. He tried to look up, but the streetlights felt like they were stabbing into his eyes. The shorter cop, the one who hadn't said much, muttered something into his radio. Jalen sat there, gasping, trying to stop his hands from shaking. "You're lucky," the taller cop muttered. "Lucky." They got back in the car, the tires screeched against the pavement, and just like that, they were gone. Jalen sat there for a long time. His face throbbed, his ribs ached. He didn't feel lucky, not even a little. But what Jalen didn't know was that somewhere, someone had seen, and that was about to change everything. But for now, all he knew was that he had to get home before his mother saw him like this. The courtroom was still tense, but now something had shifted. The jury had heard Jalen's voice, had seen the way his hands tightened against the arms of the chair when he spoke. But none of that mattered if the evidence didn't back him up. At least, that's what the defense was banking on. The officer's lawyer stood, smoothing his suit like this was just another day in court. He approached the jury box, holding a copy of the police report. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's go over the facts, shall we?" His voice was calm, too calm. On the night in question, Officers Daniels and Hughes were responding to a call about an attempted robbery. The suspect was described as a young black male wearing a dark hoodie. He glanced at Jalen as if to say, "See, you fit the description." Jalen didn't flinch. "According to their report," the lawyer continued, flipping through the pages like he was reading a bedtime story, "Mr. Carter was acting suspiciously, refused to comply with verbal commands, and attempted to flee when approached." Jalen's mother let out a sharp breath, shaking her head. The prosecution attorney put a hand on her arm, a silent plea to stay composed. "Given the circumstances," the lawyer went on, "the officers were forced to detain him using standard protocol. At no point did they apply excessive force." He paused, letting those words hang in the air. No excessive force. Jalen's fingers clenched into his pants. "Now, Mr. Carter," the lawyer said, turning toward him, "do you recall attempting to run when the officers arrived?" "I never ran," Jalen said, voice steady. "But you admit you were in the area where a crime had just been reported?" "I was going home. At night. It was 10 o'clock. I had a curfew." The lawyer's lip twitched. "And when the officers approached, you—" "I put my hands up." A flicker of frustration crossed the lawyer's face. He wasn't expecting Jalen to be this direct. "So when Officer Daniels wrote that you resisted arrest, that was a lie?" Jalen held his gaze. "Yes." A low murmur rippled through the gallery. The defense lawyer gave a tight-lipped smile and turned to the jury. The officers were responding to a call. They followed procedure. They had no way of knowing whether this young man was involved or not. Jalen opened his mouth, but the prosecutor, his lawyer, placed a hand on his arm. "Not yet. This is an unfortunate case of misunderstanding, but that doesn't mean these officers should have their lives destroyed over it." Jalen's mother shook her head. So did a few people in the gallery. The lawyer spread his hands. No excessive force, no misconduct, just a difficult situation handled professionally. He walked back to his seat, nodding at the officers. The judge turned to the prosecution. "Your response?" The prosecutor stood, calm, measured, but there was a fire behind his eyes. "Your Honor, if the defense is so sure that nothing improper happened that night, I'd like to introduce new evidence that just came to our attention." A ripple of confusion swept through the room. The defense lawyer frowned. The prosecutor turned toward the doors. "Your Honor, we have video." But no one, Not the jury, not the judge, not even Jalen was ready for what was about to be shown. For a moment, the courtroom was still, then chaos. Gasps, murmurs, reporters whispering into their phones. A few people in the gallery leaned forward, eyes wide, while others exchanged glances like they weren't sure if they had heard correctly. Video? Jalen's heart pounded. He hadn't seen a camera that night. He hadn't even thought about it. The defense lawyer straightened his tie, forcing a smirk. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. If the prosecution had video evidence, it should have been presented earlier. The prosecutor didn't blink. We didn't have this footage until 20 minutes ago. That has shut him up. The judge peered down from the bench, fingers steepled. Is this video authenticated? It's currently being verified, but given the circumstances, we believe the jury should see it. A pause. The judge's gaze flicked toward the officers at the defense table. Officer Daniels was stiff as a board. Officer Hughes, the quieter one, had gone noticeably pale. The judge nodded. Proceed. The bailiff wheeled in a monitor. The prosecutor turned to Jalen. Are you ready? Jalen swallowed. He wasn't, but he nodded anyway. The video started. The angle was shaky at first, like whoever was filming was trying to stay hidden. The screen showed a dimly lit street, the glow from a streetlight casting shadows against the sidewalk. Jalen's small figure appeared, hands raised, then sirens. A police car screeched to a stop. Two figures jumped out. The courtroom was dead silent as the video played out exactly as Jalen had described. The yelling, the orders, the way they grabbed him. I didn't do anything! A grunt, a loud thud as he hit the pavement. Jalen's mother let out a quiet sob. Someone in the back muttered a curse under their breath. The worst part hadn't even started. On screen, Officer Daniels pressed his knee into Jalen's back. His face wasn't visible, but his voice was clear. Stay down. Jalen's voice muffled. Please. A punch. Another. The dull impact of a boot against his side. And then, clear as day. Ain't no cameras here, kid. The jury flinched. The defense lawyer's smirk vanished. Officer Daniels's jaw was tight, eyes locked forward like he could will himself out of the room. Officer Hughes. His head was down. Jalen's own stomach turned as he watched himself on that screen. Small, helpless, a kid who had been walking home just minutes earlier. The video ended. No one spoke. The judge let out a slow breath. He turned toward the officers. Care to explain this? Daniels didn't answer. Hughes shifted uncomfortably. The prosecutor stepped forward, voice steady. The defense has argued that no excessive force was used. The officer's own words tell a different story. The defense lawyer rubbed his temple. Your Honor, we don't know where this footage came from. It could be manipulated. The prosecutor shook his head. The metadata confirms it was recorded the night of the incident. The footage was sent anonymously, but the timestamp matches the exact time Jalen was assaulted. He turned toward the jury. We may not know who filmed it, but we know exactly what it shows. Silence. The judge glanced at the defense table. Officer Daniels, Officer Hughes, do you have anything to say? Daniels clenched his jaw. Hughes opened his mouth, hesitated, then closed it again. The judge sighed, turning toward the jury. We'll take a recess. But let me be clear, this case has just changed. Jalen exhaled. His mother grabbed his hand, squeezing it tight. For the first time since this all started, it felt like someone was actually listening. But the fight wasn't over. Now it was time to see if the truth would be enough. The jury was escorted out. The judge left the bench. But the tension? That stayed. Jalen sat there, still gripping his mother's hand, his fingers numb from how tight she was holding on. He couldn't tell if she was trying to comfort him or herself. Across the room, the officers hadn't moved. Officer Daniels stared straight ahead, jaw clenched so hard it looked like it might snap. Officer Hughes, though, he looked shaken. He hadn't said a word, hadn't even met his own lawyer's eyes since the video played. The defense lawyer was whispering to them in a low, urgent tone. But it didn't matter what he said. The whole courtroom had just seen the truth, and no carefully worded excuse was going to erase that. A few minutes later, the judge returned. The jury filed back in. It was time to continue. Prosecution, the judge said. You may proceed. The prosecutor stood, buttoning his suit. Your Honor, given the new evidence, we request that Officers Daniels and Hughes take the stand. The defense lawyer scoffed. Absolutely not. My clients have a right to remain silent. The judge turned to the officers. That's true. But given the gravity of what we just witnessed, I'd strongly advise you to consider speaking for yourselves. Silence. Daniels didn't move. But Hughes? He finally lifted his head. I'll speak, Hughes said quietly. His lawyer whipped his head around. Don't say a word. I'll speak, Hughes repeated, louder this time. The room tensed. Jalen sat up straighter. The bailiff swore him in. He took the stand, adjusted the microphone, cleared his throat. Officer Hughes, the prosecutor began, you saw the video just now. Was any of it manipulated? A pause. No, Hughes said. It was real. A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. The defense lawyer pinched the bridge of his nose. So, the prosecutor continued, what really happened that night? Hughes swallowed. His gaze flicked toward Jalen, and for the first time, he actually looked at him. Not past him, not through him, at him. We were told a suspect was in the area, Hughes said, voice tight. Young black male, dark hoodie. We saw Jalen walking alone. Daniel said he matched the description, so we stopped him. Stopped him? The prosecutor pressed. Or attacked him? Hughes's grip tightened on the witness stand. Daniels was aggressive from the start. I told him to slow down, but he didn't. The air in the courtroom got even heavier. Did Jalen resist? Hughes shook his head. No, he admitted. He had his hands up. Jalen's mother covered her mouth, her body shaking. So why did Officer Daniels throw him to the ground? Hughes hesitated. Because he could. It was so quiet, you could hear the air conditioning humming. The prosecutor took a step forward. And when Daniels punched Jalen, kicked him, why didn't you stop him? Hughes didn't answer right away. I should have. His voice cracked slightly. I should have stopped it. Jalen felt something twist in his chest. It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest thing he was ever going to get. The prosecutor turned to the judge. Your Honor, I have no further questions. The judge exhaled and looked at the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, you now have everything you need to make your decision. Jalen's heart pounded. His hands felt clammy. This was it. But just because the truth was out didn't mean justice would come easy. The jury was dismissed to deliberate. The courtroom emptied, but Jalen stayed in his seat, staring at the wooden table in front of him. His mother ran a hand over his back. You okay? He didn't know how to answer. He had told the truth. The video had proved it. Officer Hughes had even admitted it. But that didn't mean they would win. Jalen had seen it before. People like him getting hurt, getting blamed, getting ignored. The truth wasn't always enough. Minutes passed, maybe an hour. Then the doors opened. The jury was back. Jalen's stomach twisted as everyone rushed back inside. The judge returned to his seat. The foreman stood. Has the jury reached a verdict? The judge asked. We have, Your Honor. The air felt thick, heavy. On the charge of excessive force, we find Officer Daniels. A pause, a long one. Guilty. The room exploded, gasps, a few cheers. Someone clapped before the judge banged his gavel. Order in the court. Daniels barely reacted. He sat still, staring ahead, jaw locked tight. On the charge of misconduct, we find Officer Hughes. Another pause. Guilty. Jalen let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. His mother gripped his hand, whispering, We did it. You did it. The judge turned to the defense table. Sentencing will be scheduled for a later date. Officers Daniels and Hughes, you are hereby remanded into custody. Jalen watched as the bailiffs approached the officers. For the first time, Daniels looked nervous. Jalen wasn't sure if justice had been fully served. But today was different, because this time, the truth had won. Jalen's story isn't just his. It happens to kids, to adults, to people who should never have to fear the very people meant to protect them. But change only happens when people refuse to stay silent. So speak up, record, share the truth, demand better. Because the next time something like this happens, the world needs to be watching.